This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com, and today we have an unusual guest, someone who is a builder, and we don't talk with a lot of builders. We have from time to time. We've spoken with Johnny Gahn and with Bill Smith and a few other people in the past that are in some of the episodes. You can go back and listen to then as well, but here from Las Vegas, I've got Ray Lum with me today with KMD, which is the Custom Magic Fabricators design and fabrication company, and he has a lot. It is custom. All the kind of stuff that he does is just very high end. It's very it's an exclusive line. Seems like it's like a one-off kind of a thing. The things that I have been seeing that he has created and what he's designed have been for some exactly that. Some people have some ideas and they will bring it to him, and then he builds it. It's not like, okay, I'm going to line up 15 origamis and start building these kinds of things. So anyhow, we're going to get into all of that and more, because he has a very fascinating background as far as his interest in martial arts, in the Marvel universe, as well as magic and performing, as well as, of course, then designing and manufacturing. So please welcome my guest here today, Mr. Ray Lum. Hey there, Ray. How are you, man?
Scott, how you doing? Much respect to you and your podcast. I love people that's bringing magic forward and not backwards. I always respect people like that. As you know, I'm a big advocate of people who do not bring the art forward. If you look at my Facebook, so people who bring the art forward, I really have high respect to them, because my background was brought up with Tommy Wonder. So
Right. Well, thank you very much. It was, I didn't want to stop you there with the glowing compliment. That was very nice. I that's exactly what I'm trying to do, certainly, is to bring this forward. So this way that we do have bringing magic into the future and talking with different people about their ideas, because people like you also are bringing magic forward as well. They're not necessarily recreating something that someone else has already done, but doing something that's a little better. Oh, now that we're talking about that, there is something, however, I did want to mention. I noticed on the website you've got the gumball machine, which you call the Lumball machine. Very clever. That with that, I know of the issues about that being the most ripped off, one of the most ripped off illusions, and are sold inexpensively, and they're not the original. And I know the history of that, going back then to Collector's Workshop with Rich Block and Nick Ruggiero making that, and of course then with Joe Givens, who had done that and won FISM. In fact, I was there with him at the time whenever that had happened. So how did you come about getting that bequeathed to you?
I'm glad you brought up that subject, because it's a touchy subject that people really don't know, because we didn't have internet, in 89?
Oh gosh, that was back in the 80s, exactly.
Yeah, because before I became a builder, building was in back of my mind because of Tommy Wonder. Embedded in my mind about building and fabricating. So I was a big performer I was traveling. I was an illusionist, close-up worker. I love performing. I love performing more than fabricating. So I remember back then, 88, 89, I was in Japan. Make a long story short, the promoter took me to a grocery store, and I'm a big fan of melon soda, mango soda, and I always want to stock cases of it for my crew, and I always want to stock cases when after a show I like to drink it. It's just one of those things I love. It makes me happy. Yeah. So and keeps me creative. So I went into the store and I saw a wall full of gumball machines, and I stopped, and my juices started flowing. I said, there's something about that, it just something about a gumball machine. And then my best friend is Tim White. Tim White is the original guy on the Copperfield team before Chris Kenner. He was the main guy with Joni Spina. Those are the two of the main people who really brought Copperfield into the light with all the storytelling and all that. Well, that was Joni and Tim White. Mm-hmm. So anyways, Tim was good friends with Johnny Thompson. So those two, those two are like geniuses.
Very creative.
Yeah, it's like Tiller. They know everything, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I got this idea with this gumball machine, and I went back to the room and I picked up the phone. We didn't have cell phones back then. So I picked up the phone, called up Tim White, and I said, "Hey, Tim, I got this idea with this gumball machine." He goes, "You got a method? What's the idea?" I go, "I don't know, but something about a gumball machine just fascinates me." He goes, "Well, that's okay. Well, why don't you come up with something and then call me and let me know, and then I'll see if there's anything that's anybody else is doing." So one day I was doing origami on stage. I was pushing it. I remember this vividly. I was pushing it, and next thing you know, boom, idea just struck. It's weird when you're performing, an idea just comes. I don't know if that happened to you, but an idea just popped up and I froze. Mm-hmm. And I froze and I'm going, and then I'm performing on stage and I froze. I go, "Oh man, a ring in a gumball machine. I got it. And so I was so happy. After the show, I ran back to the room and started taking notes. And I'm going, okay, how am I going to get a ring in a gumball machine? So I started telling the promoter, "Hey, buy all these gumball machines for me. Buy every one, because I want to start ripping them apart and see what can I do with a gumball machine, and if a ring's possible to vanish a ring and make it appear in a gumball machine." So 8 gumball machines later, I got one that's a prototype, and it was held together with gaff tape. And then right away, I wish back then we had cell phones. I could film it and show Johnny and Tim White. But I called them and I said, "Hey, tell Johnny about this too. I got a method where it vanishes the ring and it appears in the gumball machine. Great. I'll ask everybody to see if anybody else is doing it." Remember, this was 88, 89. Okay. So he asked Johnny. Johnny said it was a great idea and never seen it. And this is coming from Johnny Thompson, right?
He's seen most everything, right?
Yeah, he's seen everything. And then Tim White left a message. And I don't know. Oh, you should know. You were from that generation too, like me. You go back to the hotel, you get a slip of paper, and that's your message, right?
That's right.
And then I go, "Ooh, look, it's a message from Johnny Thompson and Tim White." And I'm reading it. It goes, "Nobody has a method with a gumball machine. Nobody's performing it with a gumball machine. That never existed." So, and then Tim wrote, "Johnny will love to see your method." I remember that vividly, right?
Yeah.
So I wish I filmed it, but I took notes and I wrote it down and I sent it to them. A couple of weeks later, I was still touring over in Japan, and I got the message saying, "Oh, that's a great idea." And Johnny said, "Oh man, this is great." And Tim goes, "Hey, you should start selling these things." And so one day I was performing in Japan, and all these magicians were in the audience, and I had all these bases and all these illusions, and next thing you know, all these magicians came up after the show and said, "This is some great stuff." I go, "Oh, thank you." I go, "No, the gumball machine. I'm really lost." And I do a lot of sleeving, so the method was was the sleeving, a lot of sleeving to get to point A to point B. So they said, "I don't know how you got that ring in that gumball machine, but boy." And then this one guy started taking, I forgot his name, illusionist in Japan. He started taking out his money. He's going like this. "Here, $3,000. I want to buy that from you." I'm going, maybe Tim White is right. Maybe I should sell it. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, I sold a prototype to one guy, and I was kind of embarrassed because I don't like selling prototypes. It was half finished, and I wasn't a builder back then, so I didn't want to sell a prototype, but I sold it because the guy was just so excited for it. And then next thing you know, he used it. And you know how a wildfire start, right? You just throw a match in the forest,
Right.
you know, and then all of a sudden it's a wildfire. That's what happened with the gumball machine. Next thing you know, one person asked, another person asked. So next thing you know, I said, all right. I released it to Hocus Pocus in '89. And then Tim White called me when I was still touring, and then he said, "Oh, some guy used it at FISM. Hey, congratulations!" And I go, "Wow, that's cool. That's cool." And then find out it was the other guy that. But I don't know. You know, I can't really point. A lot of people said he did knock it off, but then after seeing his version, it's my first version that I failed, and I said that couldn't work, that wouldn't go over, but he used the first version that I failed, that I threw away, which is kind of weird, and then he's calling me a knockoff. I'm going, well, you see, back then you can't really. Because there's no social media, right?
Right.
I can't really say, oh, you know,
you can't show the provenance of that because you didn't have it recorded or anything at the time.
Exactly. Who knows? Maybe he did come up with that version when I was touring. But hey, who knows? Maybe he's seen it and then he said, oh, okay, let me make my version. I don't know, because it was 80, 89, 88. But hey, I know this much. Johnny and Tim White seen it, and they seen everything.
Well, did David Copperfield ever use it then in his early shows?
No, he liked it, but he blew it off because Tim White wanted them to use it, and he showed it to him. He goes, it's clever. That's all he said.
Yeah,
it's clever.
And so eventually, I guess, did this fellow sell that then to the Collector's Workshop, or how did they?
Well, I don't know how that was their fight, but I was, because I was still in Asia touring, so I didn't know. And then Collectors came out with their version, and the guy came up with a different version of an ungimmick machine in a book, Lifesavers.
Michael Weber.
Yeah, Michael Weber. Yeah. So I don't know, you know, in the States, I don't know what was going on. And I knew when I came back, Collectors Workshop had their version, so it was quite a mess. And then but hey, who knows? But I'm always like the guy that's always try to be legit with everybody, you know, because I was close to Johnny Thompson, I was close to Tim White, and now, you know, that's why I get all these rights from every builder, like Tim Cole, Mark Kalin, on all the illusions, because I try to be the most honest person. But you know, some people think they're honest, but they're not honest, right? So I'm not going to name no people and all that, but I try to fight the good fight by exposing bad people and good, and then sticking with the good.
Well, that was kind of where I was going, I guess, with that is just I know that you are very conscientious about making sure that you're doing the right thing, and if there are some rights to be purchased, that you would. But then whenever you're making things, you're fabricating pretty much everything from scratch rather than buying some hinges or whatever. Even, you know, I mean, you're making all these things then yourself. And so I do recall talking with both Nick and Rich with Collectors many years ago, just in general, about some of their kinds of things. When they say that we will pay the rights for manufacturing a product once, and if somebody comes in later and says, hey, I was the originator of that, once that starts to become more popular, then they say, well, we've already paid to this guy, you need to kind of argue with him and get your money out of him or whatever. Said, you know, we pay once, but we're not going to get involved in all that, you know, legal battle or just battle of words back and forth of he said, she said, or I did it and you didn't, or whatever. So that's kind of how that they had approached that. And so from that's what I was saying. I know that it's still being built and being performed, and I love the trick. It's really good. And so, is your method different from the one that they have, or are they authorizing you to make and sell, or how is that?
Well, my method is on the second ring.
I think that's the same thing with theirs as well.
No, theirs is on the third.
It's a third. Oh, pardon me. Okay.
Yeah, and they built theirs different. So I mean, for collectors, I'm really impressed by when they came out with theirs. I say, hey, here's something that they came up with their own method. I wasn't mad at that. I was really mad at the first guy that won FISM with it, because he's like called me a knockoff, and I'm not that person. I'm over here fighting the good fight, exposing people who knock off stuff, and
sure,
and I pay every right with this Angelo's Levitation. Everyone that sold it, he gets his rights right away. Mark Kalin, the spiker, he gets his rights right away. I just got Tim Cole's and Andre Cole's rights on his stuff, and right away, the head mover, right away, he gets, before I even build, everybody gets their rights first before I even build. That's always been my thing.
Well, I really jumped way ahead, but that was something that was fascinating to me because I know a little bit of the history about that and some of the people who've been involved with that then along the way. But going back then again, you kind of glossed over quickly of saying that you were a performer and then you started building, and with Tommy Wonder, and people are going, whoa, wait, what?
It starts from the beginning.
Well, I know. Now, I know that you were inspired by Tommy Wonder to begin with when you were a performer, long before you ever got into custom making any kind, or designing and building all this kind of stuff then as well. Was Tommy somebody that you had seen perform, or you had been to his lecture once, or how did he first come into your life? As far as, I mean, he's not somebody who, let's say, was like David Copperfield, who was on TV all the time. So, I mean, you had to have seen him someplace.
Well, interesting story. It was Tim White and Johnny Thompson.
Going back to them, okay.
Hanging out with them, they said, Ray, you're becoming in to be just like Tommy Wonder. And I was a kid. I didn't know who Tommy Wonder was. And I said, who's this guy? Who is this guy? He goes, you got to meet him. So my mission was, when he came to the States, I was stalking him. I was literally stalking him. Every lecture, I was there. I was the guy in the back taking notes. I'm going, listening to him. I'm going, oh my God, this is how I think. I mean, his performance, his style. I go, how he loves machining, because I love machining, because I used to work in a machine shop when I was 15 years old. And I said, good heavens, the guy thinks I understand him. Yeah. So next thing you know, I was stalking him every lecture, IBM, SAM, every time he comes to the States. And then one day he just came up to me, he goes, look, kid, you're here every lecture. I go, Tommy, I can do your lecture. and we became best of friends, because cool. He started asking me about stuff, and I say, hey, you're thinking, I think just like you. And then we start hitting it off, and then he started testing me. He goes, oh, how would you do this? How would you do that? And then he went to see my show, and he said, you're all right, kid. Yeah. And I think he came out, this is a scary thing, you're a kid, and then you're doing corporate. Tommy comes out one day, and then Channing Pollock came with who's Channing's best friend, that was Lee Grable. Norm, Lee Grable, and Channing came out because I was good friends with all of them. Yeah. And especially Norm. And then
you lived in Vegas most all of the time?
No, I lived in California.
Okay.
But I travel a lot. Going back to Tommy was crazy, because as a kid, you never imagine like my whole life is just weird, because I got thrown into Tommy's circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Tommy kept this tight circle, okay? As you know, I don't know if you know, but Tommy's really grumpy. And he used to say to me, look, see that guy right there? Stay away from him. He's an a-hole.
Oh.
See that guy right there? I can't stand him. You know, this is stuff that's the inner secret stuff that people never hear.
No, they don't. I didn't know him certainly at all like you did. I've met him a few times. And in fact, one time I was a talent chairman for a convention, and the president was saying, I don't care who you get, but make sure Tommy Wonder's there. Anybody else, he said, all of our budget can go towards him and then everybody else. And so I reached out and got to him and got to know him fairly well. And then had seen a few of his lectures as well. I remember one time going to London, and I just landed and went straight to the Magic Circle. It was on a Monday. And so he was lecturing. And I just remember I was just wasted. I mean, I had not been sleeping on the plane, and I fell asleep during his lecture. And whenever I'd open my eyes, I'd look at him, and he was talking and looking back at me. It's just like, what are you doing here, kid? You know,
I'm surprised he yelled at you. Yeah, Tommy was when you get to know him really well, he ended up to be like a dad, right? He goes, look, kid. He always calls me kid. Look, kid. I think Johnny Thompson called me a kid too. He goes, look, kid, stay away from this guy. Do this, do that. And this is the weirdest thing. He knew I was cool with Johnny. He knew I was cool with Channing and all that. So he really like latched on to me. So because he asked me this weird question. One day it was like a weird question out of the blue. He goes, look, Ray, you did everything in performing close up. What do you really want to do? That's Tommy's attitude. He goes, what you really want to do? And then, you know, I was a stupid kid. I go, I want to be like you. And he goes, really? And then he I remember this vividly. He puts his hand on my shoulder. He goes, look, you want to learn everything? Here's the thing. Go out and work with John Gahn, Bill Smith. Work with everybody. Work with every builder. Ooh, wait a minute. You're a performer. They won't let you in. Scrap that. So I go, damn. So I'm going, that's a great idea. And then here's the weirdest thing. Tommy was like, I think he's like a god, you know, a magician's god, because somehow or another, with that blessing, I was helping out Tim White on Copperfield stuff. And then next thing you know, I got a job with Illusion Projects. They came to the set on Flying when I was with Tim White. He goes, hey, you're Tim's good friend, huh? I'm looking for fabricators. Why don't you work with me? And next thing you know, working with Illusion Projects, Bill Smith say, hey, why don't you work with me? I go, darn. And then next thing you know, Mike Michaels said, hey, why don't you come work with me? I go, oh, okay. And then helping out EDF in LA. And next thing you know, my childhood dream, I said to Tommy, out from Blue, I go, hey, Tommy, you know what I really want to do is work at Owen Magic Supreme. And he slapped me, he goes, and he, you know, he smokes really heavily, right? Yeah. And he blows smoke in my face. He goes, dream on, kid. And then I said, damn. And next thing you know, Alan Zagorski picked up the phone, called me one day and said, Ray, I heard you doing some good stuff. I'm going, who's this? It's Alan Zagorski. And he goes, why don't you get your ass up here and work with me? And then, you know, that's Alan's attitude, right? I go, oh, yeah, that's a great joke. That's a great joke. Yeah, you got me. What's up, Alan? And he goes, no, I'm not kidding. Why don't you? I heard you doing some good stuff. People say you're doing some good work. I want you up here. And I said, are you serious? Come on.
Yeah, wow.
And next thing you know, I find myself working there for 2 years, traveling from Vegas on a Sunday and then leaving LA on a Friday. So that was my life for 2 years because I wanted to do it.
Right.
Because I said to myself, man, Owen Magic Supreme, that is my final destination right there. That's all I need to complete my circle.
Now, when you were working with the other guys, I mean, Bill and Johnny and Gone and others, were you just there like working on special projects, or were you there for like a year or longer, or
I was never working
with multiple builders?
Well, first, that's the only builder I never worked with was John Gone.
Okay.
That's the only builder I did work with. No, I was doing everybody's stuff. Copperfield stuff at Bill Smith's. Lucian projects also. I was working at that. That's what made me dive into.
You kind of bounce from place to place, kind of helping a little bit on this project, and then go over to Bill's and help.
Oh no! Actually, Lucian project was 4 years.
Okay.
Bill Smith was 2 years. Mike Michaels 1 year.
Now, how many guys and gals would be working on their crew? They have like when I've been in some of their illusion factories, they have 3 or 4 people who are back there working. So is that
Bill's?
Yeah.
Bill's is like when I was there, like 4 people. Mike has 2. Owen Magic has 1. Lucian Projects has like 8. So
I wondered about that.
It was here's the thing. I got what Tommy was trying to say to me. He wanted me to work with everybody. So what he's trying to say is take in the good and throw out the bad. Sniff everything they're doing and see what's right and wrong.
Wow.
I learned that. I learned a lot of, being around Tommy. He doesn't even need to say anything. That aura of him, you get so much knowledge. Just like a Jedi, it's like if you watch Star Wars, it's like Master Yoda,
You can absorb it osmotically almost.
It's weird. Tommy was like, there's something about him. He's so creative. He's like, and then all that just goes on you if you latch onto him because my dad was a martial artist. That's another thing that he talked about too. Is that if you are next to big masters, my dad was he knew Bruce Lee, so he was saying that being around, I got it too when my dad was saying, he said, yeah, being around Bruce, you feel the energy, you feel you know so much by him talking. That's how Tommy was. Tommy was like the Bruce Lee of magic. The guy knew everything. And so one day, what's a trip is like, I was a kid, in your 8, I think it was 20, I think. He gave me the nest of boxes. He shoves it right in front of me. And I remember that was a prototype because he was talking about making 10 of them. Before he passed away, he said, I have 10 of these. I'm going to get ready to really ramp up. And he showed him the one he traveled with was his prototype, the one he used on L&L, the video and all that. That was just a prototype. It didn't work right. He said, Ray, now you're in this position where you can judge and see. Tell me what you think. You sit there, you go, man, this is made out of fiberglass. And in my head, I go, I would never do it like this. I would machine the box.
Right.
I would machine the whole clock. The clock was like wobbly.
Well, a lot of things that they had at their disposal, I mean, that Tommy was working with at the time, for an example, would be wood, whereas that you could use other kinds of hardened plastics. Of course, now we have 3D printing, and there's a lot more things that you can do now that you couldn't have just a few short years ago, let alone when Tommy was still alive and still building stuff back then. So there are a lot of things that you could do that are improved upon, certainly. I was just talking with a friend of mine who owns a DeLorean recently, and he was talking about how that they are now replacing parts with DeLoreans because they were, I guess, built back in 1981, and there are only so many of them. They're now making the parts out of all stainless steel, because a lot of the things that they had made before, like the plastics, were deteriorating. And so if they were replacing them with original parts, they would still be plastic, they would deteriorate. So they are now replacing things with stainless steel. Likewise, there are things I know that Tommy was using. I think like before we were on here, I was watching one of your videos about the Nesta boxes, where you said that he had originally used wood, but then of course, due to the climate and the humidity of where it might be, it might expand, it wouldn't slide, just right or whatever. So you're using different types of materials. So just the fact that we have new materials now, you can greatly improve some of the
exactly
things.
True. I wish Tommy was alive. I could show him my improvement, because I took this whole. Here's the thing, Tommy, when he gave it to me to look at, he said, you should do this. And I said, yeah, because it was so advanced. It's like the most advanced math, right? It's not math 1 or algebra. It's trigonometry, right? It's like so advanced, where I look at it, I go, I can never make this. But then one day he kept pushing it. He said, you should make my stuff.
And he had confidence in you. I think that's another thing, is for you to think, I'm not sure if I can build this, and you're kind of lacking a little bit of your own confidence, but someone like that, who would be an inspiration to you to begin with, is pushing you to saying, yes, you can, you should do this.
Yeah. It's like, again, it's like Master Yoda saying, you can do it, right? And I'm going, it's just a funny thing. And it's like all my building is like, people come to me, oh, you can do it. I go, I don't know, I can't. And then next thing you know, when I get into it, it's like something takes over, and then I'm building it. It's like the head mover. I just finished it and just went out the door just this morning. And I said, oh man, Tim.
Was that an Andre Cole thing?
Yeah. Andre Cole's. And then I copy exactly Tim Cole's head box, which is so advanced because of the angles. And I said, oh, I can never do this. And then I did it. It was just weird. So going back to Tommy's, he said, you can do it. You can do it. I go, I don't know. So I read his books, right? He goes, just read the books and my notes and look at it. I go, all right. So I looked at it. I went back to him. I said, this makes no sense. And if you read the books and you get into it, I mean, I'm deep into it, right? Where I read every letter. Yeah,
because you said there were some secrets in there, and he kind of gave half truths.
Nobody knew that, right? And then so I'm gonna talk about this. So Tommy looked at me and he laughed. He was smoking, laughing at me, right? I'm going, well, what's so funny, Tommy? I was like, scratching my head, what's so funny? And he goes, so you understand it, huh? I go, and he hits me. He said, Ray, you know why I wrote my books the way I did? I go, no, it's kind of psychotic. I told him, right? And he said, look, Ray, if it's in riddles. I go, what? And this is exactly what he said. I'm gonna quote this, what he said. So he said, look, Ray, if people are gonna touch my, I want them to decipher my riddle. And if they have the balls to build my, I want them to solve my. I go, oh, so you go, okay, this is Yoda, right? Yeah. He's like, and I'm going, what the hell? So I'm going back and I'm like reading the riddles. I'm going, okay, this is not the measurement. Let's so next thing you know, I started redesigning the whole schematics and everything. And I say, okay, this is why you're buying. I got it. So next thing you know, that you wonder, Scott, up to now, the history of from Tommy when he first came out with the books and the lectures on all his stuff to now, nobody made the Nesta boxes 3. Nobody, because of that. And
they couldn't figure it out.
They couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
I figured it out. I figured out the cam arm, the clock, and I redid it my way.
And did you figure that out with the help of Tommy? In other words, going back to him and saying, is this kind of right? Or kind of having him look over your shoulder, or you completed it and then took it to him?
He passed away already. He passed
before
away.
You finished it. I see.
Yeah, yeah. I was still mapping it out when he passed away.
Okay.
I didn't complete until 10 years ago, I think. 10 years ago. And then all that time, Jeff Hobson was my neighbor. So Jeff was coming over, looking at, because he was a big fan.
Yeah.
He goes, "Oh, what did you solve today? How's it looking?" And then that's why Jeff did that little promo piece for me, because he was so excited. He goes, "Oh, I've never seen this in history that anybody has completed one." And God, looking at Tommy's and looking at yours, God, we're night and day ago. Oh, here's where Tommy failed. And, I couldn't, if Tommy was alive, I still couldn't bring it to him and say, "Hey, this is what I want to say to him." I go, "Hey, Tommy, this is why it bind. This is where you shouldn't do this." Honestly, if he was alive, I couldn't say that to him. I can't say, "Hey, Tommy, why did you do it this way? This will be better this way,"
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe he will look at me and he'll be impressed and not hit me.
Well, I cannot hit you. It does sound like and look like the two of you had a lot in common from the standpoint of not just being a builder and a creator and an inventor like that, but also a performer, because he was well known at performing and winning a FISM winning performer and all over the world. And you had been performing also. And yours is more, you were doing more illusions as opposed to kind of stand-up things that he was doing in one.
Well, I started off close-up, actually.
Okay.
My dream is, if I did have a show, I would want a show in Vegas with just 50 seats and call it Intimate Magic. And because I like the challenge of close-up, as you know, Scott, taking on people one-on-one, that's the challenge. Illusion's nothing, because I wouldn't say nothing, but
there's a lot to look at. There's a lot going on. It's easy to be misdirected with a larger stage and bigger illusions and dancing girls, it's music, etc., as opposed to focus on just your hands. Yeah.
And a good friend, Paul Gertner. I love Paul's style, and to see how Paul handles a room and it's intimate for each person. I love that. I love performing trade shows.
But even he has purchased something, and it's a custom item from you.
Oh yeah. We'll get on that later too. I actually love close-up more than illusions. I love illusions, but close-up is just that challenge. It's just that challenge of afterwards. My thing is, when I do corporate, I go in with my suit, and afterwards they look at me, right, and I look like a kung fu character, right? Came out for a kung fu movie, and then this is the funnest thing for me, and I this is a high for me. You always see the CEO like this,
with his arms crossed, leaning back,
Okay. And then afterwards, they're giddy like little kids.
Oh yeah.
And they go,
you like to see that change.
Yeah. And
there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, that's such a high for me, because especially now with Dan's Birdcage, which I'm waiting for years to do, because
I love it.
I was the one who kept bugging Walter. I go, "Walter, no matter how much it costs, I would love to own a birdcage." And then Walter, he was true to his words, boy. He goes, "No, son, I'm gonna take that to my grave." And I go, darn, because I see the potential in that. Because I said, man, if I could do that in trade shows.
I don't know that Walter Blaney was looking to have that as something he wanted to mass produce and to market widely, but he wanted to have one that was the perfect birdcage for him to use, because he used it so often that he would be able then to have all these backups then. And it wasn't until just before he did pass that he did he was able to perfect that, but that was a long road, as you know, from the research and development to just like his hoop. I mean, there are other kinds of things that he's just had difficulty trying to get built. And I've got one of his original ones as well, which I use, and I've been looking for a perfect bird cage for a long time also, and it keeps getting hung up, but his is perfect 100% of the time. I absolutely love it.
And it's just that not only for us magicians to see how good it is and how perfect it is, it's the lay person seeing that. I mean, I do it every time, and that's my opener. And then it's such a great opener. I told Walter that. I go, Walter, you created the most ultimate opener and the most ultimate icebreaker. I go, you got to release it. He goes, no. And I go, man, Walter, I would kill for it.
Well, it was not just the bird cage, but also it was the holdout or the holder that he was using then as well, which he wouldn't share with anybody. And I have a lot of stories which I've had on the podcast in the past where he has just said nope. And in fact, as close as we were, he was saying nope. Scott, he said, I can't tell you. But there were some other funny stories about the rest of that. Before we go too much further, another question that I had to do with building. Certainly, there are a lot of other builders. I mean, Tim Clothier and Bill Smith and others we mentioned here in Vegas and elsewhere around LA, et cetera. And why would someone go to one versus another? I mean, I'm sure there's a relationship, obviously, they have, let's say, like you with Mark Kalin or Tim Cole or whomever, as far as once it's like, hey, I like the way this guy builds. But why would one go to one versus the other? Is there something that is unique about what you do that someone else doesn't do, about why they should be coming to you?
Good question. I love that question. When I was working with everybody, I didn't want to start my company yet until I really absorbed everything. And I think after Owen Magic was really sealed it, where I said, looking at everybody's work and look at everything, I'm going to open my company and be different. So I didn't model after illusion builders, illusion companies. I model just like my show. I never modeled my show from like how other people go, oh, let's copy Copperfield, let's copy Lance, right? A lot of magicians do that.
Right.
I don't do that. I model like my show. I model producers like Quentin Tarantino.
Cool. Like Kill Bill.
Kung Fu Hustle, Stephen Chow. I look at producers and see how they think, because it's I think outside the box. And that's how Tommy is, right? So going back to building was the same thing, the same parallel line. I said, I'm not going to follow these builders. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow Lamborghini and Rolex, how they think. Lamborghini will never sell a car under 100,000, right? So I'm never going to sell illusion under 30,000. Rolex, right? They'll never discount their watch. Right. Hey, this is their price. This is what you're going to get, a top quality watch. Lamborghini, a top quality car. This is what you're going to get. No ifs, ands, or buts. And their detail is second to none. Right. So I did that. I say, you know what? Nobody has ever, besides Owen Magic. Owen Magic was flawless in their stuff, but I want to take it to take the illusion building to the modern times, where go beyond what Owen Magic did. Owen Magic was great for the time, the 70s. It was great. Okay, you can't knock that. They had their run, and it was great. Up to now, it's a collectible now.
Well, right. It's like P&L and Thayer and some others.
Exactly. So everybody had their time. Well, I want to create my own time where my thing is detail and more detail and over detail, right? So I'm into details where it's layers and layers of detail. If for example, a squeeze box, right? nobody ever noticed this. So when I got the rights to Squeezebox, I noticed everybody's building their squeeze box. They're building it really long, right? So here's something you don't notice. When you build illusions, you have to build it close up. Like you can walk up to my squeeze box or my fire spiker. It'll look good close up and it'll look thin as a potato chip. So imagine if you take that on stage, it'll look even
better.
Because when it's on stage, anything looks better, right?
Right.
So nobody knows the secret is building close up. Build it close up where it looks good close up, and it'll look even 10 times better on stage. That's the secret.
And there's also, I would think, the hardware you would have to use or that you manufacture would have to be something that would withstand the test of multiple performances.
Oh yeah. My stuff is all from ground up because I love machining. I'll never, if I cannot buy anything off the shelf.
I found that fascinating watching one of the videos there with Jeff, in which you had developed and manufactured or machined, I guess, even the hinges that right down to the very key.
So
behind the key, you actually make your own key. I mean, for this little box, and the details are incredible.
Yeah,
and the magnets you put around, and stainless steel versus anyhow, it's just very, very well made, and the attention to detail is just
thanks. Like
amazing.
Again, layers and layers of detail, and I want to do something that no other builder has done. Every builder is doing the same thing. Just like performers, right, Scott? It's like you don't want to be like everybody else. You want to be different.
Sure.
You want to stand out, and that's the problem with people. People are afraid to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And I think Tommy slapped my head so many times to think outside the box, and not to be afraid. That's what made me. I think that's what made me a great performer. I wouldn't say great, but at least ahead of everybody thinking as a performer, because Tommy said, I remember performing in front of him. He said, "Why would you do that?" I'm going, "Why? Well, it looks weird or what?" He go, "No. Rethink that move and do it again." And so he was like that, like again, a Jedi, right?
Most magicians stop thinking too soon.
Exactly. Don't and another thing is magicians think that lay spectator are stupid. They're not.
Unfortunately, that's true. They're not.
If
you happen, when you're doing close up, if you happen to flash something and you noticed it and you think, oh, maybe they didn't see it, they saw it.
Oh yeah. That's why I love performing close up. That's why, like I said, if people ask me, well, what's your dream theater? 50 people. That's my dream theater, and I'll have it every 3 times a day, every night. And because
there are little pocket theaters there around Vegas. I mean, you look at what Dirk Losander had done, and a few others have got some nice little showrooms. Some pocket places or little comedy clubs during the afternoon that are whatever. So,
well, I might do what Paul Gertner's doing. That's smart. The things going for hotel ballrooms and setting up and because I think that's
John Farquhar's got his own place going up in Canada as well, which is just an amazing place.
Yeah. Hey, see, that's such a great challenge to have people come in a small group, and then you just dominated each person, and then they want how you did a good job is they say, oh, let's take a picture with you. And that's how you know. If people don't want to take a picture with you, you go, "Whoa, I failed." So
that's funny. That's a good point.
But I love that challenge. And building a prop, going back to building too, it's like performing. You'd never want to fail. So that's why I go way and beyond when I build a prop. People say, "Oh, you overbuild it." I go, "No, you don't." Lamborghini never said I overbuilt the Diablo, right?
Right.
So that's how I think. I'm going. That's why most of my clients are. They really know what they want. Like Ozzy Wynn came before he went on Fool Us. He said, "I want the ultimate table. This is what's going to happen." And he goes, every builder I showed this to, they just laughed and they don't want to do it. I'm going, okay, let me see it. I go, oh my God, it's a nightmare. And then next thing you know, I did it. And look at that reaction he got on Fullest. Paul Gertner did the same thing. He showed it. He showed. I guess they always want to show it to other builders first, and then since I'm they figure, oh, Ray can solve at the end because
doesn't matter if they go someplace else first, as long as they come to you last.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny. I go, well, why did you go to those guys first? And they laughed at you, and you just come straight here. But it's funny. Paul said, "Oh yeah, everybody said they can't build it." I go, let me look at this thing. And next thing you know, yeah, I did it. It's a challenge. To me, again, it's like having 50 people in a room and challenging myself. That's my high. It's taking a prop and say, oh, they can't do it, huh?
Yeah,
I'll do it. And
well, this goes also to something that is another one of your passions. We talked about, I mentioned briefly the Marvel universe, and I was just thinking about Iron Man, and what you got, as we're looking at you now on the video over here, this you got a replica, full size of Iron Man sitting behind you, of thinking a lot like the character, what's his name? It's Stark.
Tony Stark?
Tony Stark. Yeah, like Tony Stark. I mean, you're the Tony Stark of magic. Builders, I mean, you're thinking all the time, and you're building things and creating.
Pretty much.
Plus performing, because he's going out and saving the world, as well as making all this, and that's what you're doing. You're performing and you're building. You're the Tony Stark of magic.
But I'm not an alcoholic.
Oh, well, okay. There's the upside.
Yeah, that's what everybody said. I'm a big fan of Iron Man. Yeah, pretty much. I wish I had the money as Stark. I wish I was a billionaire. Then that thing would be real back there. But yeah, it just comes from Tommy. Tommy just beat the knowledge in you, and I'm glad that Tommy really beat the knowledge in me. Alan Zagorski finished it off, giving me the cherry on top, where he gave. Alan Zagorski is a smart man when it comes to wood. Lupe Nielsen's another smart person.
Boy, Lupe is amazing.
Amazing. Again, everybody has their
talents or specialty.
Talents, yeah. EDF in LA, my good friend Eric, he's great in mechanical. Lupe is great on boxes and complex joints. Everybody has their traits, and I try to learn every one of them, but being a close-up illusionist and a builder, you try to juggle all three, and then people say, well, God, what's your hobby? I go, well, collecting Marvel stuff. You go, God, you found a time for hobby? And
yeah. So, well, just like Chris Kenner collects a lot of stuff also,
Oh, yeah. Plus, I can't forget, I work out every morning at martial arts. So it's still in martial arts. So
because you said that your father was really kind of pushing you, wanting to get into the martial arts, and he had all the contacts, just like you and I know people in magic. He knew everybody in that world with Jet Li and with Bruce Lee and everybody else. He
was a great martial artist. He's another Jedi, that knew. My dad was like the Johnny Thompson of magic, of martial arts. Yeah, he just knew everything. But and I learned a lot off of him. I think a lot of performers should have that discipline, as like in martial arts. Just a lot of discipline that I think. Don't think about it.
They should find, I agree with you, finding something else outside of magic that would be some sort of a discipline, of whether it's model building or something that you can focus on, or aside from reading something outside of just magic books and periodicals or whatever, to find something else that you can get your mind focused on and have a discipline of some sort. And also a meditation of some way of focusing your mind on.
Yeah, a lot of these kids now, Scott, back in the days, we didn't have no YouTube and phones. Man, my first person that I had to, not only Tommy Wonder, was Lee Grable. I had to I had to bug him. I had to bug Norm Nielsen. I had to bug all these old timers to like, hey, I need help.
Yeah.
Help me with this. Show me a French drop.
It's nice that they took the time to be a mentor to you of sorts, so that way that you became who you are today, which says a lot to the rest of us of saying you can be inspirational to someone else, unbeknownst to you, who may go on to become the next Ray Lum or whomever.
Yeah. I think I was lucky, not like these kids now. They didn't have a Lee Grable that you can bug, or Norm, or these old timers.
Well, Lance Burton's pretty handy. I mean, he's been, after he's retired, he's been very accessible. And when he goes to Magic Convention, particularly the IBM International Convention, and he works with the youth program, and so he's accessible to answer questions and whatever, and inspiring some youth like that. So that's something that I think people can give back to the community once that you have taken something from it. And so it's great to see people like that.
And what's really sad is you see these kids on YouTube exposing stuff. And
when it's not theirs to expose to begin with, and they shouldn't be doing it. Second of all.
Exactly. And then it's funny. It was like these guys are like known people in the industry too. It's a damn shame. I
know what you're talking about.
But what can you do, right?
We can.
But see, these guys, they didn't have these old timers to come to your corporate show, like Channing. Channing came to my corporate show one time. That's a trip, And then talking to Channing, saying Channing goes, "Hey, you are unique and original. I like it." And then to see Lee Grable comment on you and then help you out, and then you go to Tommy Wonder. I think my thing is like I was blessed. I was blessed with these old timers helping me out, and you can't recreate that now, right? A lot of these good people are gone, like Norm Nielsen. Norm was like the best. Norm was great. I love that guy. He was like my uncle. So we used to go out for ice cream every week and dinner. So, but talking with him, Johnny, of course, Johnny Thompson was like, so
many people knowledge that have gone on that have given so much. Billy McComb is another one, who was just nicest guy and very caring and sharing and everything, So, it's we lived in a good time, and I think still we're in a continuing golden age of Magic. And I still think, I remember Chuck Fain saying to me once after I was performing, he said, "I loved your performance, but what I love most about your performance is you. I liked you." And that was the first time I started thinking, it doesn't matter what I do as long as it's how I do it, and I'm putting me into that. It's not the trick itself. And that was just really inspirational to me, and something, I would pass on to others as well. Well, listen, speaking of inspiration, there are a couple of last questions I wanted to ask you, by the way, and something is completely off the record, very weird. How do you grow your hair the way you do?
Used to be longer, actually.
I thought that. Now, do you shave that and then you keep this little thing in the back? Or
every morning, I just had to take a mirror and shave it.
But how do you see in the back to cut to that round place on the back where you keep that? What do they call that? What is that?
A Q?
A Q, yeah, Q. How do you keep the Q?
Ancient Chinese secret. You just do it. You just shave it, and you just.
How long has that Q been growing?
Ever since the movie Crouching Tiger, because I was an extra on there.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was just a quick extra in the village. Make a long story short, that's another story too. My whole life is like story after story. I was hanging out with my dad. My dad was helping out on the wire team, and it was a layover. I was visiting my dad, and I was going to go to Shanghai for a gig. And my gear was just transferring over there. So I went to see my dad. And then I was sitting down. Back then I had long hair. And then I just tied it in a bun and put a chopstick in. So I had long hair. And the casting agent came and sheesh, this is crazy because I was in the area where there's no restroom. It was all you see is bamboo and rice fields. Oh man, that was crazy. I was sitting in a bamboo area, just watching the filming, which is it's not even spectacular. Everybody goes, oh, you're on a movie set. It's boring as hell. All they do is sit and wait.
Yeah.
And cast agent came over and looked at me and said, hey, you look like you belong in the movie. I'm going, oh, what are you talking about? How about we need some extras, but here's the catch. You gotta shave your hair. I'm going, what do you mean I shave my hair? I've been growing this for a long time. Go, no, we'll give you a cue and we'll give you $5,000 American money. I go, $5,000. Hey, I can use that for another illusion. As magicians, we always think like that, right?
Always thinking.
Yeah, I can take that to OM Magic. I go, okay. And so next thing you know, I'm sitting there, they're going, the shade gave me a cue. It was a nice one too. Had more hair. And next thing you know, I was on the set for only a couple of seconds and got my $5,000, came back, did the show. Next thing you know, hey, that's a good look. That's a good look. So just kept it ever since. So,
did you keep getting it smaller and smaller? You said,
yeah, when you grow old, you get smaller.
Yeah, I look at Max Maven's the way he had that widow's peak to begin with, and it kept going further and further back.
That's what happens when you get old, buddy.
Well, trust me, I understand that then too. Well, this has been marvelous. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And to close out on this, that the name of my podcast is called the Magic Word Podcast, and I always like to close by asking my guest what it is that's your philosophy of life. What is your, not necessarily a word, but your words? What would be something that you could pass on to others? Something you live by. What is your chi?
To always be true to yourself and be true to the industry. And then do what's right, not wrong. How's that?
Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to live, and you're certainly living that way as well because you're a good guy. Ray, thank you very much. This has been wonderful. I appreciate you being a guest here.
Thank you, Scott. And keep doing what you're doing because I love what you're doing. Advancing the art. It's just great. This is great to see people advancing the art. And I'm all for that.
Thank you. I plan on doing this as long as I can. I enjoy getting an opportunity to talk with people like you and to expanding relationships around the world. So this is great. So thank you again, Ray. I appreciate you being my guest.
Thank you, Scott.
So for the Magic Word and from Las Vegas, that was Ray Lum, and this is Scotty out.